The Super Bowl tourist fog has lifted, but they didn't take the conspiracy theorists with them. This week has a lot of rude boys in the House, long meetings in the Senate, and some wins for housing justice squeaking by. Not to mention, Katie brought the BBE with her first veto. Arizona, we've got issues. This was a banner week for tenant rights and good housing bills. A few of our rent is too high candidates were part of a press conference this week calling on action on several housing bills. Our very own Dominic Medina spoke out on the real need and effects of corporate greed on people's homes and pushed for the legislature to take action. SB 1569, a study committee on evictions, and SB 1117, an omnibus housing bill including extended eviction timelines for mobile homeowners and lifting the casita ban, all made it out of committee in the past week. If these two get passed out of the House and signed by the governor, we will be able to get hard numbers on the effects of evictions and the start of some solid protections for our most vulnerable renters. Not to mention the first step on making more housing available as soon as possible. One bill we're on the lookout for next week is SB 1506, a ban on source of income discrimination. Right now, landlords can refuse to take you on as a tenant if you're receiving Section 8 housing or any other housing voucher support from a government program. This bill would make that a crime and will be heard in the Senate next week. We've been seeing a lot of comments on how hard renting is these days. To put pressure on legislators doubting that need, share your rent story, tag us with the hashtag #RentIsTooHigh, and let's get some of these stories out there. This week in elections, we sat through two separate committee meetings, both pushing for changes into election machines, software, and disagreeing with each other on whether we should count the votes faster to get results sooner, or do a complete hand count on all elections in all counties, no matter how long it takes. The conspiracy theorists really need to get their ish together and make up their mind on how they want to rig our elections. One bill we testified on this week was HB 2591, which wants to put all ballot drop boxes in government buildings only accessible during 9 to 5 business hours. I know I'm not the only one who has had to take a day off to stand in line at the MBD. Having to do that to drop off your ballot defeats the purpose of having a drop box in the first place. HB 2591 will have a particularly bad effect on rural counties and tribal nations, where voting locations and government buildings are remote and far apart as it is. Another one, this time from the Senate, SB 1518, is trying to shorten the timeline that mail-in ballots can be dropped off. Instead of receiving your ballots at the polling location on Election Day, some officials are trying to have the Friday before Election Day be the last time that you can drop off your ballot. This cuts down another accessibility tool that led to the record turnout in 2022 and would be harmful, again, to rural counties and the tribal communities and working families. I've seen less hurdles at a high school track meet compared to the obstacle course the legislature is trying to set up. Some people in the legislature try to pull a fast one and pass a budget that leaves out our community completely. Governor Hobbs wasted no time stamping out that nonsense and vetoing the skinny budget completely. We all knew this would happen, and the majority party continues to waste everyone's time with their corporate-friendly shenanigans. This means we have more time to get a people's budget on the books, and it's up to us to fight for our priorities both in the legislature and with the governor. We saw this week that Governor Hobbs isn't afraid to veto anything that doesn't pass the test, and it'll be up to the legislature to either bring back their vetoed bills in the next session or resurrect it as a zombie bill and try to sneak it past in the budget. FYI, before a bill becomes law in Arizona, it has to baby step its way through several committees in one chamber before it gets sent across the courtyard to be heard in the other chamber. This is called crossover and gives us a clearer picture of what bills are going to pass and what will actually make it to the governor's desk. Crossover week is upon us, and starting next week, we'll see the final rounds of bills that could become laws once they're signed by the governor, assuming they're not changed in the new chamber, that is. Any bill that is not amended in the crossover chamber is transmitted directly to the governor, who then can sign it if it's something that fits her agenda. This Thursday, we partnered with Mitch at the SMCC and Indie Film Fest for the kickoff event and screening of 4 community documentaries. We were honored to be partnering with Our Voice, Our Vote Arizona, Lucha, Chispa, and to showcase our Rent is Too High mini documentary, the very first episode. Shout out to the community organizations who were part of the panel, showcased their documentary, and were part of making this event happen. Our Rent is Too High petition is still going strong, and we've seen that there is a lot of stuff happening at the Capitol when it comes to housing. If you think rent is too high in Arizona and you haven't signed the petition yet, visit rentistoohigh.org to get involved with our Rent is Too High campaign. We covered a lot of bills today. Make sure that you're watching our Instagram for ways to get involved and ways to shout out your rent story. Writing by Clarissa Rodriguez and Senia Orona. Filming done by Clarissa Rodriguez. Editing done by Clarissa Rodriguez and Senia Orona. Graphics by Senia Orona. Theme music by Dominic Medina. The thoughts and opinions expressed by We've Got Issues do not necessarily represent those of the Fuerte Arts movement.